Hey loves, I am back, and this time it is not a weave. Nope, you guessed it. It is this sexy short crop cut. My client went from natural and decided that it was enough of that and she wanted to change it up a bit. So this is what we came up with. If you want to see how I did that, stay tuned. All right, so you know it. Let's get started. So right now, my client is natural. She is coming out of, I think, some braids she may have had. So I am just sorting through the hair, and I'm making certain that I start from the ends as though I was loosening out a braid and working my way closer to the scalp. Now I'm going in with a wider tooth comb as I get closer to the scalp. So I want to make certain that I don't disturb her scalp before relaxing. So since we know that we're going to cut the hair, there's no need to relax hair that we're not going to use or keep. So I'm going to go ahead and start her cut now. This is prior to the relaxing process. This saves time on relaxing, but it also saves a lot of product as well. So I'm going to do her cut pretty much the same way I would do if this was after the relaxing process. I'm not going to cut as deep though. I'm just creating a guideline hair that I know for certain I'm not going to use. And then after relaxing her hair, I'll come back and clean up her cut. Okay, so now that I have the outline of her cut as you see here, I'm going in and I'm basting her scalp. I want to make certain that I cover all the areas. This is going to allow the relaxer the time that it needs to process. Now usually with hair that has not been relaxed in quite some time and hair that has not been maybe conditioned or managed in the way that it should, sometimes the relaxer does not process to the best of its ability the first time around. So I always advise my clients that you may have to come back in 4 weeks and get it retouched so that you can break that hair down completely. Then usually after that, they can go back to 6 to 8 weeks of getting just their touch up. So you always want to make certain that you set the expectations prior to the process. So she's aware that we're going to get most of the kinks out, but it's more than likely that she'll have to come in about a month and get a retouch rather than waiting 6 to 8 weeks. So I'm not going to go into depth about what I'm doing here. Most of you know how to relax. I always use professional products. I don't use any in the box. However, there is detailed instructions in the box, and you just basically part the hair in 4 quadrants, and then you section and you go. You want to make certain too that you're not over processing or leaving the relaxer on too long. A lot of times that happens. So for instance, if you have very stubborn hair or very coarse hair, and usually the regular relaxer doesn't process in the time that you need, you still need to make certain that you remove the relaxer in the time that it states. So if it's 20 minutes to process, whether the hair is completely processed or not, you need to be removing this chemical in 20 minutes. Now, any hair that's on a client's neck that's outside of their natural hairline, I do not relax. I don't risk putting relaxer on the skin for a few strands that will be shaved off. So I am smoothing her hair with a fine tooth comb. Usually I use a brush to apply. It gets very close to the scalp without actually getting relaxer onto the scalp. But when I go in, I do use a fine tooth comb depending on the texture of the hair. And this just guarantees that it actually straightens out that natural curl pattern a lot more thoroughly than if I continued with the brush. Now I'm making certain not to scrape her scalp. I want her to be able to process the allotted time without irritating beforehand. So if you're not that good at this, I would maybe just using the back of the comb. I know it looks like I'm scraping, but I'm not. I'm actually only combing. I'm not touching her scalp with the teeth of the comb. Now I've already molded her, I've placed her under the dryer, and I'm just giving some lift to the front of her hair. It was still a little bit damp, so I'm just going in with my blow dryer. And now I'm going to go in and clean up the original cut that I began prior to her relaxer. Now for her, I chose to do a close shave. She has enough texture and density that she could withstand a close shave. It's also going to do her a little bit better than if she did a taper, because it would grow out pretty quickly and then it would kind of bush out on the back of her neck. So more coarser, denser hair, I tend to do a close shave or like a fade at the lower nape area, as opposed to just leaving it tapered with a lot of hair hanging. Now around the ear, I like to use my clippers to trim it out. It gets a little bit more precise. And then sometimes around the sideburns, I'll just use my shears so that it's a little softer. I don't always need it quite as crisp, but around the ears and around the neck, I make certain that I use my trimmer. Alright, now I'm going to start to clean up the cut. If you've done majority of the cut prior to the relaxer, that should make this part a breeze. You are literally just going back to get anything that you may have left, or if there's any uneven lengths, this is your opportunity now to clean that up. But again, there should not be a whole lot of hair to cut because you've cut the majority of the hair off prior to your relaxer process. And so this may take you maybe 10 minutes at the most just to run through. I'll show you later, but on her other side, I used my trimmer as well to carve out her ear. I wanted it a little bit heavier, so she had a weighted side, so I did most of that cutting with my shears, and then just right on the very edge, I used my trimmers. So now I'm going in and texturing the top just to give it some layers and some contrast. This is going to be a little bit more longer of a length. She did initially pick something a little shorter, but because I knew that we were going to have to go back in and retouch at a later time, I wanted to give her enough hair that she would be able to curl herself in the meantime. Now I'm applying one of my favorite products. It's this mango butter by Softy. I love it. It smells really good and it has a nice texture for coating the hair, especially when you're going to use a high temperature flat iron. For her hair to soak it out, I'm going to be ranging between about 450. I'm using this temperature not only to soak the hair out, but to set the curls. Once I've completed curling her entire hair, I go back in and define some of the curls on the top just to make certain that there are no flyaways. Again, I want this to be textured, but I don't want a lot of movement. Here's a closer look of what the top looks like. And here is the finished look, loves. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope there was something that you learned and something that you can apply either for your hair or your client's hair. And I hope you stay tuned and keep watching for more videos to come. Please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bar. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye, loves.